Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.
I'm Roach, and I listen to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast.
Indeed we are, people. Indeed we are. My name is Machel St. Patrick here at one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, and I'm here again to look at a Caribbean Cricket Podcast episode. Look at? Why did I say that? Do you know what? I got distracted by something on my desk, lost my train of thought. Let me start again, people. My name is Machel St. Patrick here at one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. And I'm here again to look at and I guess summarize the test match between Australia and the West Indies. Australia won the test match by 164 runs. And let me pause there. Be honest, people. Everybody watching this, anybody watching this, listening to this, be honest. Was that result, that defeat, the margin of defeat, closer than you expected? I had a few people message me like, early in the early hours of this morning when the game was going on, and by this morning I mean UK time, in the early hours of this morning, saying, listen, this game wasn't a close game. And I get it, and I totally agree. In the conventional sense, when you only take 6 Aussie wickets across their 2 declared innings, it's not a close game. And I think the point that lots of people are making is it only went to the 5th day because of how long the Aussies chose to bat. Totally hear that, totally accept that in reality, it wasn't a close game. But that notwithstanding, who truly expected West Indies to put up 283 in the first innings and then 333 or 333 in the second innings and take the game to the 5th day? This, for me, some credit still has to be given to the West Indies for fighting with the bat. There's a whole myriad of issues to raise about the ball and what we did with the ball or didn't do with the ball. But I think we have to give them credit. I think we have to give them some credit with the bat. And yes, again, if we want to show some nuance to the argument, people can say, well, it was only a few batters that really showed up. Obviously, Craig and Tej, Ruston and Alzari in the second innings. But even that I don't really prescribe to, because at the end of the day, a team effort is a team effort. Yes, there may have been some standout batters within the West Indies side, but the total's still the total. You can't say, oh, I was surprised that they got 283, 333, and then say, yeah, but it was only down to a few batters. What I'm trying to say is the total is still the total. You still have to praise the side. Yes, in some senses, when you get those scores, it's usually only going to be down to a few batters. That doesn't mean that takes away from what the team achieved. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I don't think if you had taken a straw poll of 1,000 West Indian fans, apart from once you take out like the 10 deluded ones, nobody would have predicted it'd go to the 5th day. Nobody would have predicted that the margin of defeat would be 164 runs. Most people would have said it'd be like 300 plus runs, or if we had batted first, Australia would have won by 10 wickets, etc. I think 164 run defeat is a lot closer than people would have thought. That's still not close, but it's a lot closer, I think, than people would have thought. So before I get into the player ratings, because that's ultimately what I've called the video, let's just quickly sum up the day's play. Obviously, overnight, West Indies were 194, I think 100 or not 192. It was either 192 for 3 or I think it was 192 for 3 overnight. Craig was set on 101 and Mayers had just got to the crease. Now, in the day 4 video that I did and released before the start of play before the start of day 5, I'd said that what I thought was most likely to happen is that we'd lose, and Australia would pick up the 7 wickets fairly comfortably. I said that the only possible way West Indies could take the match deep on day 5 was if we got through the first hour of play. So by the time the new ball turned up, we still had 2 set batters at the crease. Well, in the first hour of play, we lost. Let me just go back and remind myself. In the first hour of play, We lost Craig Brathwaite for 110. In fact, Mayers went before him. Mayers went for I think it was 10 runs. Yeah, 10 off 22 balls. Just prodded at one. He was neither forward nor back, no foot movement, just prodded at one. It was such a soft dismissal. Just prodded at one, nicked off to Smith. So he went within 5 overs of the restart. It was within 5 overs of the restart. Mayers was gone. 4 overs later, Brathwaite was gone. He got a good delivery, in fairness. It was Lyon pitched one in the rough. It was a quicker ball pitched in the rough and just skidded through, and Brathwaite got done. And I think that was a good delivery. I think it was unexpected. The deviation off the rough helped. And yeah, Brathwaite got done for 110. At that point, we were 212 for 5. And I won't lie. At that point, I was like, right, yeah, we're going to get bowled out probably for less than 250. Not just because Craig was gone, but you were then basically asking Jason Holder, Josh De Silva, and Roston Chase to produce some kind of miracle. 4 runs later, Holder was gone. Again, Holder faced 34 balls before he got out. And he was solid in defense. He was looking like he'd settled himself in. Then Australia, but there was 2 overs before the new ball. They turned to Travis Head, and they obviously turned to him to be like, just get us through to the new ball. I can only assume that Jason's eyes lit up and he was like, right, here's a chance to get some quick runs before the new ball comes and I have to settle down again. He chased a wide one, nicked to Smith, who took a really good catch, in fairness, diving catch at first slip. But the point was it was soft and it was a giveaway. So consider this, people. Overnight, we were 192 for 3, right? 62, I think it was 62 overs bowled. Within an hour, we were 216 for 6. So we'd added 24 runs. We'd added 24 runs in, just doing my calculations, in 16 overs and lost 3 wickets. Game was done. So then Roston walks in with Josh De Silva and the new ball's due. So Josh fell 4 out. So once the new ball was due, bear in mind at this point, Pat Cummins is on the field, but he's not bowling. He's choosing not to bowl because basically Nathan Lyon had done the job for him, right? So the Australians take the new ball. Again, Josh, he'd faced 37 balls. He looked good in defense, looked like he was there for a long time. And how did he get out again? Oh, yeah, just nicked one. Regulation ball from Josh Hazelwood in a corridor of uncertainty. Josh played hard hands at it and nicked to Khawaja, who I think was at second slip. And then we were 2-3-3 for 7. And like I say, at that point, I just thought, well, Roston and Alzari aren't going to last long. This is going to be over soon. They managed to get through to lunch, and it was 258 for 7 at lunch. And deep down, I was like, you know what? Before the series started, I asked for 2 scores over 250 across the 2 test matches. And in my head, I was like, well, you know what? They gave us 283 in the first innings. They've given us 258 for 7 at lunchtime at the second innings. If they can just eke out another 20 plus runs, you know what? I'll take that. And for anyone sitting there listening to this going like, what do you mean you would have taken that, Mash? Here's why I would have taken that, right? Because I did some number crunching. And I tweeted it for those who follow us on our Twitter feed. I'll just read out the tweet. Eventually, West Indies got to 333, right? But when I did the number crunching, look what I found. West Indies' score of 333 all out was only the 4th time West Indies has scored 333 or higher in our last 20 at-bats in Australia. So what I did was, after we reached our 333, I went back and I looked at the last 4 series, the last 4 times we've gone to Australia for a test series. So that goes back to 2005, 2006, and including this tour. We have only scored above 333 4 times in 20 innings. If those of you who are wondering, so how many times, Mash, have we scored less than 250? 8 of the 20 innings. 8 of the 20 innings. So approximately 40% of the innings we have batted in Australia, we scored less than 250. So now some of you might realize why before this series started, I said, you know what? If we can get 2 scores above 250 across the 2 tests, we've done all right. Because, you see, I'm a man who, I come with facts. And I'm not saying that as an ego thing. That's not coming as some arrogance thing. I just deal with facts. I deal with facts. I deal with stats. I deal with trends. I deal with context. I deal with perspective. This West Indies side and the history of recent history of West Indies in Australia, going back what? We're going back 17 years. 2005 was the tour I went to. Yeah, going back 17 years. We've made less than 250 40% of the time when batting in Australia. So when they got to lunch 258 for 7, I was like, you know what? I kind of have to take that still, even though it's disappointing, even though we've lost 4 wickets by lunchtime. We're clearly going to lose this test match. We're not going to survive. I was like, I'll take that. Imagine then after lunch, when Roston and Alzari put together a partnership of 82 of 119 balls, I had to respect it. 82 of 119 balls between Roston Chase batting at 8 and Alzari Joseph batting at 9. And I know there are plenty of you who will be saying Alzari Joseph has the potential to be a test match all-rounder. 100%. 100%. We saw some innings he played in New Zealand back in, I think, the latter half of 20. Was that 2021? Or was that 2020? Can't even remember the years. I get my pandemic years mixed up. But we saw what we've seen what Alzari Joseph can do with the bat once he applies himself. So I had to rate it. Roston Chase got a 50. He got another Test match 50, and in fact, actually, I didn't look up these stats. But as I'm recording this live, I think I'm going to look it up now because I do think it's important to add some context to what Roston achieved. So this was Roston Chase's first 50 since the 62 he got at home against South Africa. But if I go further back from that, so let me do the calculations, people. I'm doing. Sorry, I should have done this beforehand. So Roston Chase has only scored 3 50s in his last 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. He's only scored 3 50s in his last 22 test match innings. In fact, if I take that even further, if I take that back even further, 24, 20, 24, 25, 27, 29. If I go back even further, so Roston Chase has only scored 3 50s in his last 29 at-bats. When you consider that Roston Chase has 5 test match hundreds, that's why someone like me has been super critical of Roston Chase's fall from grace, to the point now where Roston Chase's fall from grace is so deep, he's now batting at 8 for West Indies and being taken as the primary spinner. I've spoken about that already. You know what my feelings are on that, but I'm not above celebrating and respecting the fighting innings he produced today. 55 of 85 balls. I asked in yesterday's video, I just want Mayers and everybody after him who can bat to at least face 75 deliveries. Roston faced 85. Alzari faced 72. Mayers didn't face more than 22. Holder faced 35. De Silva faced 38. So if I ask for the players to face at least 75 deliveries, of course I have to rate Roston's innings. Of course I have to rate Alzari Joseph's 43 from 72 balls at number 9. And they brought even more respectability to the scoreline. Obviously, once Alzari fell, Roston then had to chase runs. Alzari fell when it was 315 for 8. And then eventually we were all out for 333. So like I say, in the context of how we have generally performed in Australia, that 333 was our 4th highest score in Australia in the last 17 years. Deep that, and then understand why today's performance in the second innings was actually something to be applauded. That 333 was our 4th highest score in Australia in the last 17 years, which has included 4 tours of Australia, 20 innings in Australia, and today was our 4th highest score. I have to respect it. Yes, it doesn't mean the match was close, but in terms of battle, in terms of having some signs of, I don't know, optimism and some green shoots, I have to respect the innings. I have to respect us getting to 3-3-3. Now, obviously, cold light of day, big win for Australia. They take a 1-0 lead. We now officially cannot make the World Test Championship for anybody who was kind of keeping any kind of mathematical chance at the back of their head. That's done now. This video isn't about looking ahead towards the pink ball test, which starts in 4 days' time, because that needs to be a separate video, because there is an entire myriad of discussion points there. Is Kemar Roach fit? Carl Mayers can't bowl. Does that mean he does or doesn't play? Raymond Reefer has gone home. Nkrumah Bonner left this test with a concussion. Is he fit enough to come out? So there's a Roston Chase is our only spinner on tour. There's a whole heap of discussion points that needs a separate video. The main purpose of this particular video was to give the player ratings out, rather than reflect. I didn't even really want to reflect on the test match as a whole. We are, at the time of me recording this, we're actually about to, myself and Santoki, we're about to record an episode with the Grade Cricketer. So for any of you who are fans of the Grade Cricketer, that massive cricket platform in Australia, we're actually doing a collaboration, and we're recording that in an hour. So look for that episode to drop sooner rather than later. So we'll discuss more things on that particular episode about the test match itself. Santoki and myself will obviously do a recording for West Indies on 99.94 as well. But anyways, all that aside, I wanted to do some player ratings. So let's just go for the team. As usual, people, get in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the player ratings. Let me know about your thoughts about anything I've said, or just chat for the sake of chatting. You all know by now that I usually engage with every single comment in some shape or form, if you comment below. So let's get into it. Craig Brathwaite. So Brathwaite, first innings 64 off 166 balls. Second innings 110, his first century in Australia. 110 off 188 balls, and his innings basically kept us alive going into the 5th day. Craig Brathwaite, for me, top scorer in the West Indies innings. Yes, some of you might say Mash take some points off for captaincy, particularly when Australia were batting on the second day, and how we approached Australia's second innings. I hear that. 9 out of 10. I'm giving Craig a 9 out of 10. He got a 50 and he got a century batting for West Indies in Australia. I think that's got to be a 9 out of 10. Tej Chandapur on debut. 51 maiden test match half century in the first innings, 51 off 79 balls, 78 run partnership with Craig at the top. And then in the second innings, 45 off 126 balls, a partnership of 116 with Craig. In the context of Tej Chandapur being on test match debut, a half century and then a 45. He looks like he belongs at this level. 7.5 out of 10. 7.5 out of 10. Only because some of you will say, Mash, that's too low. I get it. The context of him being on debut, I should possibly give him higher. But if he'd got 250s, then I've probably given him higher. Maybe I should give him 8. But for now, I'm sticking with 7.5. But maybe I should have given him 8. Nkrumah Bonner, the original number 3, left the match with a concussion after getting hit on the helmet by Cameron Green. He retired hurt in the first innings, and then was replaced by Shamar Brooks. He got 16 runs from 40. Sorry, he was unbeaten on 16 runs of 47 balls. So he started to see the early shoots of why we should value Nkrumah Bonner in our side, because of his ability to soak up balls as well, just like Craig and Tej can. I mean, he wasn't out. He had to retire hurt. Concussion sub. Can you really grade? I'm going to just put ungraded. I don't think it's fair to grade Nkrumah Bonner because he had to be replaced as a concussion sub. So I'll leave him ungraded. Shamar Brooks' replacement. He had to bat at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He had to bat at 7 in the first innings, because obviously by the time they realised that Bonner wouldn't come back out, Brooks had to come in when at number 7. And in that first at bat, he got 33 or 58 balls. Looked really fluent, and then wafted at one outside off stump and gave it away, which I actually would say is, we see that way too often with Shamar Brooks. Second innings, he batted at number 3, more like a usual position that he should bat. He's clearly, I don't think he's a test match number 3, but that's where he had to bat. Obviously, Bonner was gone. And he got 11 off 20. I'm trying to remember what happened there. He just prodded to Nathan Lyon, and he prodded to Smith at first slip. 33 and 11 off 20. 4 out of 10. Is that even 4? 3.5 out of 10 for Shamar Brooks. I didn't see enough grit and stickability in the second innings. Yes, I know he was technically I should say, well, he was the 4th highest scorer in the first innings, and he looked quite fluent till he gave it away. Yeah, 3.5. Number 4, Jermaine Blackwood. First innings, he faced 108 balls for 36 runs, and then I think he got a teeth out. That was the one where Mitchell Stark got him LBW. It was out on umpire's call. And the ball was like, the paint of the ball was touching Jermaine Blackwood's leg stump. I still maintain that's a teeth out. I think he was unfortunate to be dismissed for 36. That said, across the 2 innings, Jermaine was hopping to the short ball. He was never really, I don't think Jermaine was ever really comfortable against the Aussie quicks. In the second innings, he actually got out to Nathan Lyon, Marnus Labuschagne taking an excellent catch at short leg. So Blackwood got 24 of 62 balls in the second innings. So a 36 and a 24. It's mid, isn't it? It's like it's not good, but there was some signs of Blackwood trying to stick it out. So in the first innings, to put this in perspective, in the first innings, Blackwood faced the second highest number of balls in the West Indies innings, and then in the second innings, Blackwood faced the 5th highest number of balls. So there was definitely signs for me in terms of the middle order of Blackwood trying to fight, show grit, and stick at the crease. Got done in the first innings with a teeth. Second innings, fantastic catch, but he never looked comfortable. 4.5 out of 10. 4.5 out. 4.5. Is that harsh? Maybe 5. 4.5 out of 10 or 5 for Dads. Kyle Mayers. 1 in the first innings, bowled Stark, caught on the crease, done him in, little foot movement shown. Second innings, done in by Nathan Lyon, little foot movement shown, just a tentative prod at a nothing delivery, and Smith snaffled that up, and he went for 10. So a 1 and a 10, a shoulder injury, so he couldn't even bowl in the second innings. In the first innings of the match, he actually bowled really well, 15 overs, 2 maidens, 1 for 39. With the best economy in the West Indies bowling attack. We are going to miss Kyle Mayer's bowling for the pink ball test. I do think he would have got prodigious movement more than likely in the pink ball test, but he can't bowl now for the remainder of the tournament. But at the end of the day, Mayers is primarily, or his primary suit is to be selected as a batter. A 1 and a 10 when you're the West Indies number 5 ain't good enough, and he didn't look comfortable across both innings. Because of his efforts with the ball in the first innings, I'll give him a 2. If it was just about the bat, then I'd give him none. But I think the effort with the ball makes me give him a 2. Jason Holder, first innings, got to 27 after facing 54 balls. And then again, I thought it was a soft dismissal. Prodded it to David Warner down the leg side. At leg slip, in fact. I thought that was soft. You shouldn't be getting out that way. Fell into the trap. So 27, and then in the second innings, again, after getting himself in after facing 34 balls, he then chased a wide one from Travis Head, of all people, and gave it away. So 27 and a 3. And then his bowling, I don't think he took a wicket in the match. No wickets in the match. So 27-3. No wickets in the match. And don't get me wrong, certainly in the first innings, I think Holder was unlucky. I definitely think we have to recognise that he bowled some beauties in the first innings and never caught the edge. But at the end of the day, no wickets in the wickets column. And a 27 and a 3. Uh, 3 out of 10? 3 out of 10? What are you saying, people? 3 out of 10? What did I give Brooks? I gave Brooks 3.5, and he got 33, and Brooks got 33 and 11. And Holder got 27 and 3. And what did I give Brooks? 3.5. I'm going to give Jason Holder 2.5 or 3. 3. Let's give Jason Holder 3. Who's next? Josh Da Silva. Duck in the first innings. Wild shot. Hoiking across the trying to whip one through mid wicket to a Mitchell Stark, like a Mitchell Stark kind of textbook in swinger. Duckers. Second innings, 12 runs, nicked off to slip. So a duck and 12. Did he take any catches behind the stumps? Let me just check if he took any how many catches he took. 2 in the first innings, 1 in the second innings. Does that even do anything? So a duck and 12, 3 catches. It's a poor test match for Josh Da Silva. 1 out of 10 for Josh Da Silva. Who's number 8? Roston Chase. 13 in the first innings of 42 balls, 55 in the second innings of 85 balls to help lift us to a score of 333. However, as much as I want to, and I'll talk about his efforts with the bat in a minute, but we have to remember that Roston Chase was picked to bowl. In the first innings, he bowled 31 overs, the most of any West Indian bowler. 31 overs, 2 maidens, none for 140. And an economy of 4.51. Second Australian innings, 6 overs, no maidens, 1 for 31, economy of 5.16. Here's the thing, people. If you are picked in a test match squad and the lead selector says this player has been picked to go as the primary off spinner, I have to view your rating based on what you are actually picked to do. So if it's about the off spin, I've got to give him 1 out of 10, maybe none out of 10, right? But because he got a test match half century, his first one since South Africa at home, only his third in his last 29 innings, test match half century, I do have to put the rating up, even though that's not what he was actually selected to do per se. You can't, because of the test match half century, useless with the ball. I don't think he bowled well with the ball. But because of the test match half century, 3.5 out of 10. Some of you will say, nah, Mash, you have to give him higher. He's one of only 3 players to get a 50 in the test match. Craig got 1, Tage got 1, Roston got 1. So some of you will say, nah, Mash, you have to give him higher. And I probably do, but that's not what he was picked for. So I have to keep it in context. Alzari Joseph, I believe he also went wicketless. Let me just double check. Alzari Joseph, first Australian innings, 24 overs, 4 maidens, none for 83. Was it the first innings where he got someone out but for no ball? Or was that Labuschagne in the second innings? As usual with Alzari Joseph, when he cranked it up, he caused problems. I think he was a bit unlucky. Probably should have had at least 1 or 2 wickets. Could be the story of our bowling in general. We just didn't really bowl full enough. I don't think we bowled the right lines. I don't think we challenged the stumps enough across the match, which is something we're going to have to rectify in the pink ball test. But 24 overs, 4 maidens, none for 83 in the first innings. Second innings, 10 overs, 1 maiden, none for 42. Economy of 4.2. Should have had a wicket. So the third umpire said he overstepped. I still think that's a controversial call, but he went wicketless throughout the match, is what we ultimately have to acknowledge, okay? And if I've just made the argument about Roston Chase that we have to judge somebody on what their primary suit is first and foremost, Alzari went wicketless. With the bat, he scored 4 in the first innings and 43 in the second innings. That 43 was like the 4th highest score out of any of the West Indians, though, in the match. 4th highest? Sorry, what am I talking about? Craig got a 50 and a century. Tage got a 50 and a 45. Roston got a 55. And Alzari got a 43. So for that 43, what do I give Alzari? No wickets in the match, but a 43 at number 9. I guess I got, 3 out of 10? 3 out of 10? Ratings are low. Jaden Seals. First, he got the first wicket in the match. Obviously, he got David Warner, I believe, chopped on. So first innings, 21 overs, 3 maidens, 1 for 95, economy 4.52. Second innings, 3 overs, no maidens, none for 18. Economy of 6. Tough test for Jayden. We said it would be tough. As much as he's been brilliant for the West Indies thus far in his career, that's all been in home conditions. First time he's touring Australia against players like David Warner, Marnus Labuschagne, Steve Smith. It's hard going. It was always going to be hard going for Jayden Seales. It's a learning curve. 1 wicket across the match. Alzari took none, and I've just given Alzari 3 or 3.5, whatever I gave Alzari. Jayden took 1 wicket in the match and was expensive. Boy, I'm being harsh here, but 2 out of 10 for Jayden. 2 out of 10. And then lastly, Kemar Roach pulled up with an injury in the Australia's second innings. First innings, 26 overs, 3 maidens, none for 91, economy 3.5. Again, just like Jason Holder, Kemar did bowl. Kemar did bowl some really good deliveries. On another day, he would have nicked, one of the batters would have nicked off, but he went wicketless in the first innings as Australia racked up 598 for 4. Second innings, he pulled up with an injury, but not before he'd got Usman Khawaja to nick behind Josh De Silva. 7 overs, 2 maidens, 1 for 30, economy of 4.28. If I just gave Jayden 2 for taking 1 wicket, can I really give Kemar Roach better than 2? I'm going to give Kemar Roach better than Jay. I'm going to give Kemar Roach 2.5 or 3. Just because if you remember and go back, I do think Kemar bowled some good deliveries in that, more so than others, in that first innings that went without reward. So maybe 2.5 or 3 for Kemar Roach. When you think about it, people, my ratings are actually low. So as much as I started off the kind of monologue about this episode saying, oh, it was much closer than people would have thought, when you deep it, the only people I've actually given good ratings to are Craig Brathwaite, Tej Chanderpaul. That's it. That's the only two. That's the only 2 players I actually gave good ratings to. So what do we really say then? Australia beat West Indies by 164 runs, but the match was much closer than we thought, primarily thanks to the efforts of Craig Brathwaite and Tej Chanderpaul. Obviously, all of the bowlers I've basically given 3 or lower because they didn't do anything. They didn't make any breakthroughs with the ball. But let me just say this before I bring this one to a close. I gave you some stats at the beginning about West Indies with the bat historically in Australia. This is important for me to just note as I come to an end in terms of the historic context of West Indies with the ball in Australia. In the last 17 innings, West Indies have bowled against Australia in Australia, going all the way back to the 2005-2006 tour. We have only bowled Australia out 5 times. All of the other innings have been declarations. Okay? So 12 out of the last 17 innings Australia have batted against us in their own conditions. They have declared 12 out of the 17. So there's no use people coming at me and saying, oh, West Indies bowling wasn't good enough, which you could argue it wasn't, but this isn't something new. We've been struggling in Australia, failing to get them out and watching them declare for fun and just declare. So this first test match followed the trend. The only difference with this first test match was that we showed more fight and grit with the bat than we usually historically do in Australia. Remember what I said about the stats with the bat? 8 times out of the last 20 at-bats we've had in Australia, we've failed to get more than 250 runs. So this test match, we showed more grit than usual with the bat and reverted to the norm for the West Indies bowling performance in Australia. So that's why it was probably a bit closer than it should have been, because we actually showed up in one of the suits and kept our kind of historical downward trend in the other one in terms of Australian conditions. Listen, people, that one's gone longer than usual. I guess it should do because it's a kind of end of series review of sorts. But hopefully you've been seeing the ticker tape go across the bottom of the screen as I've been chatting. You can follow the Caribbean Cricket Podcast at Carib Cricket, Twitter, Instagram. Like, share, subscribe to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Share this with anybody who's interested in West Indies cricket. We're still on the road to 4K. I think we're just about to hit 3,700, which means we're about to get to the we need 300 people to get to 4K. Let's try get to that 4K people, then we can get on the road to 5K. If you'd like to support the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, you can do so at www.patreon.com/Carib Cricket for as little as £2, dollars, rupees, yen, whatever your currency is. Every little piece helps the Caribbean Cricket Podcast go in and allow us to subscribe to the different platforms to do content like this and so on and so forth. But thanks for tuning in again, people. Stay locked in for the West Indies on 99.94 episode that Santoki and I will be doing, reviewing the first test match. Stay locked in for the episode we're going to be recording with Grey Cricketer in about 50 minutes time. So that should be out very soon in the early days of the next week as well. So go ahead and watch that as well. And keep following the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, people. I've been Machel St. Patrick Hewitt, one half of the Caribbean Cricket Podcast. Peace.
We rule the cricket world. Now the rules seem coming.
Welcome to the Caribbean Cricket Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things West Indies cricket. By the fans, for the fans.